They laughed at his armor before they understood that old human things were never truly dead. They were only waiting for a familiar kind of danger. The Court of Seven Moons had gathered beneath the glass ceiling of Vale Tharian, where captured starlight moved like liquid gold above the heads of princes. Admirals, gene lords, and jeweled diplomats who believed history existed to praise them. The human delegation came last, 6 tired diplomats, 3 security officers, 1 old soldier, and 1 suit of armor that looked as if it had been dragged from a grave and insulted by rain. Colonel Marcus Hale wore it without apology. He was 62 by Earth years, not ancient, but old enough for alien nobles to mistake weariness for weakness. His hair had gone iron gray. His left eye had been replaced by a plain black optic. His jaw carried an old burn scar, and his right hand moved with the careful patience of someone who had learned pain could be negotiated with, but never defeated. Around his body stood the armor, heavy matte charcoal, scarred across every plate, patched in places with different metals, the chest marked by a cracked blue stripe that had once meant United Earth Marine Command. The first laugh came from Prince Valor of the Luminari. He lifted a jeweled finger toward Marcus and asked whether Earth had brought a soldier or a museum exhibit. The court rippled with amusement. Admiral Schur of the Talvathai clicked her mandibles and wondered aloud if the humans needed help locating the scrap furnace. A Silk Lord whispered that the armor looked older than human civilization itself. Human Ambassador Reyna Calder did not react. The 3 human security officers did not react. Marcus Hale simply stood beside the delegation table, with both hands resting over the grip of a sealed ceremonial sidearm he was not allowed to draw. Only the armor reacted, not visibly, not at first. Deep beneath its scarred chest plate, where no alien scan had bothered to look because no one scanned garbage carefully, a dead system heard laughter, compared it against old battlefield stress patterns, dismissed it as non-lethal, and went back to sleep. The Court of Seven Moons did not know that the armor had a name. It was called Bastion 9. Bastion 9 had served in the siege of Nairobi Orbit, the Europa drowning, the ashfall of Kepler Ridge, the war under the red sun of Harrow, and finally the Silent Line, where humanity had held 13 refugee worlds with old ships, tired Marines, and orders that said, "Nobody gets through." It had carried Marcus when he was young and angry, then middle-aged and hollow, then old and still standing because the armor had lost too many wearers to accept easy retirement. Every patch on it was a memory. Every weld was a name. Every dent had a date. Its systems were outdated by 9 alien standards and illegal by 12. The laughter grew when Marcus was asked to step forward for the ceremonial disarmament ritual. Alien guards displayed crystal spears, gravity fans, pulse blades, intelligent shields, poison jewelry, ceremonial claws, and neural mist veils. When Marcus stepped onto the scanning dais, Registrar stared at the armor's surface like a priest forced to inspect a kitchen bucket. "Your suit lacks active polish fields," he said. Marcus answered, "Yes." "It lacks responsive gemstone nodes." "Yes." "It lacks flight grace." "Yes." "It lacks noble crest registration." "Yes." "It lacks aesthetic integrity." Marcus looked down at the little official, then at the laughing court. That one may be cultural. The human diplomats coughed into their hands. Prince Valor smiled wider. "Tell us, old soldier, does it still move?" Marcus flexed one gauntlet. The servos gave a rough mechanical growl that made several polished guards flinch despite themselves. He said, "When it wants to." The prince laughed too loudly, as princes often do when they have confused cruelty with courage. "Perhaps during dinner, it will remember where it left its dignity." Marcus turned his black optic toward him. The flesh eye remained calm. The armor remained still, but deep in Bastion 9. A phrase entered old memory, remember war. Dignity, prince, hostile, non-combatant environment. Threat level low, monitor Princess Cyrillany of the Elland Court watched from the high witness arch without laughing. She was the youngest royal observer, sent by her mother to learn how powerful beings lied politely. Cyrillany had been raised with human jokes. Humans were short-lived, overreactive, sentimental about machinery, incapable of proper surrender. Impressive only when desperate. Yet the old soldier unsettled her. He did not look humiliated. He looked as if humiliation were weather. Unpleasant but irrelevant, the armor unsettled her more. Because every Elend artifact sang softly to royal blood, every blade and crown and shipcore carried aesthetic harmony. The human suit sang nothing. It was silent in the way a sealed tomb is silent. Not empty, holding breath, the ceremony continued. An insult became entertainment. Lord Kareth of the Vosk Dominion asked if Earth had sent its champion in corpse metal to remind everyone humans eventually died. Ambassador Calder smiled and answered, "Everyone eventually dies, Lord Kareth. Humans simply take notes." Another laugh, sharper this time. Marcus did not join it. He was looking at the floor. At the seams between black crystal tiles, at the support pillars under the court dais, at the decorative moon statues placed symmetrically near the emergency exits. Cyrilli noticed because no one else was watching him. Every other guard stared at nobles. Doors. Rivals. Pretty assassins. Cameras. Marcus watched architecture like architecture might betray them. His armor watched with him. And then the armor remembered something. A pulse passed through its sleeping thread archive, too small for the court sensors. No brighter than a heartbeat in a storm. The left knee plate warmed. The old optic in Marcus's helmet flickered once. And inside his private ear channel, a voice that had not spoken in 11 years whispered through static. Pattern irregularity. Marcus did not move. His jaw tightened by a fraction. Ambassador Calder's smile remained perfect. But her hand paused above her water glass. The human security officer nearest the exit shifted his stance. Cyrilli saw all of it and felt the skin between her shoulders go cold. The Laughing Court had missed the first warning. Bastion 9 had not. The old armor carried more than weapons and shields. It carried war memory. It was a combat inheritance lattice. Built for mission logs, pilot reflex maps, last stand recordings, whispered prayers accidentally captured by suit audio, and the final commands of people who had died, making sure someone else did not. When Marcus wore it, he did not command alone. Thousands of fragments woke around him, not alive, not dead, but experienced. They noticed old mistakes before young eyes saw new ones. They remembered the weight of collapsing corridors, the smell of plasma traps, the acoustic hum of cloaked drones, the way assassins forgot civilians unless civilians were bait. Bastion 9 whispered again, support pillars inconsistent. Decorative statues have mass anomalies, external security loops repeating. War pattern, Harrow type. Marcus breathed in once. Harrow had been the kind of war governments classified because even victory left shame. The Mir were supposed to be extinct, crushed at the silent line, scattered into dark space by human and allied fire. Marcus had watched their last battle through cracked glass. He had heard the Mir Queen speak through captured speakers, telling humanity that memory was a weakness because humans could not forget the dead. Marcus had answered by holding the line for 46 hours. The Mir had learned to fear old human armor. Now, in the Court of Seven Moons, beneath gold light and laughter, Bastion 9 smelled their war again. Marcus spoke softly over the human channel. "Calder, we have a problem." Ambassador Calder did not look at him. "Is it political, mechanical, or Marcus?" "All three," he said. "Probable Mir architecture in the chamber." Her smile finally thinned, confirmed, not yet. He looked toward the statues, each shaped like a moon goddess, each carved from translucent pearl stone, each placed at an angle no artist would choose unless art was not the purpose. Bastion 9 overlaid old red geometry across his vision. Blast arcs, swarm release cones, panic routes, casualty estimates, Marcus said. High confidence. The ambassador set down her glass, still smiling at the court. "How long?" Bastion 9 answered before Marcus could. "Unknown." Trigger likely tied to treaty seal or royal blood proximity. Princess Cyrilli was walking toward the central dais to present the Elend Witness gem. Marcus turned his head. The armor remembered faster than he did. Possible blood trigger, protect royal observer. Marcus stepped off the security line. ***, the honor registrar shrieked immediately. Human security breach. Human security breach. The court turned, delighted at first. Expecting rudeness, perhaps panic, Prince Valor clapped once and said, "Has the museum found a battlefield?" Guards moved to intercept Marcus, their shining weapons rising in a choreography of arrogance. He did not draw his sidearm. He simply walked faster. Each step made the armor growl louder. Old hydraulics waking, dust shaking from plate seams. The court laughed again because they thought the sound meant malfunction. Then Bastion 9 spoke through the external grill. Threat environment recognized. The voice was deep, damaged, layered with static and something like distant thunder. The court stopped laughing. Marcus cursed under his breath. "I told you not to use the theater voice." Bastion 9 answered only in his ear. Morale intimidation protocol active. Marcus muttered, "We are at a peace summit." The armor whispered, "Yes." The first statue opened. It did not explode like a bomb. It unfolded like a flower made from knives, pearl stone peeling away to reveal a black swarm core packed with living metal insects, each no larger than a fingernail, each carrying enough neurotoxin to kill a senator. The nearest guards froze in disbelief. Marcus was already moving. Bastion 9 slammed its left arm forward. The dented forearm plate split open, and an old human shield burst outward with a crack of blue light. The swarm hit it like rain against a bunker door. Thousands of sparks scattered across the court floor. Nobles screamed, musicians ran. Prince Valere fell backward over his own cloak, and Princess Seralini stood 3 steps from death, with Marcus hit her shoulder and drove her down behind him. The armor took the swarm impact meant for her face. That was the moment the alien court stopped laughing at the old armor. The other statues opened in sequence, 12 hidden cores releasing mere knife drones into the chamber. Court guards shouted conflicting orders. Noble security teams drew weapons on each other, thinking the attack belonged to rival houses. Drones sliced through silk banners, poison insects filled the air. Every empire would blame another. Every treaty would collapse. Every frontier would burn again. It had watched worlds die from the first accusation. He opened the old command channel. Human delegation, shelter civilians. Do not engage allied guards unless fired upon, Calder. Broadcast all suit feeds to every neutral recorder. I want witnesses before panic writes history. Ambassador Calder's voice came steady. Already moving, understood, Marcus. Are we fighting a war in a ballroom? He raised his shield as a noble lord's head vanished under a swarm shadow. Same war, new carpet. Bastion 9 remembered the carpet too. Slippery, underblood, traction adjustment active. Marcus moved like an old machine, remembering why it had been built, but inevitable. He planted himself between the densest swarm and the civilian cluster. Shield humming, shoulder plates opening one after another. Old countermeasure ports, spitting chaff, heat, dust, sound bursts. The first wave died against him. The second learned, curving around the shield toward the wounded. Bastion 9 predicted the move from Harrow Archive. Marcus pivoted before the drones turned. Fired a wrist shotgun full of ceramic flechettes and cut a black arc out of the air. Seralini watched from the floor, breath trapped in her throat. The old armor did not move like equipment. It moved like a graveyard keeping promises. A Talvathi admiral shouted that the humans had triggered the attack. Lord Kareth accused the Elend witness Gem. Prince Valar screamed for his personal guard to carry him to safety, and in the confusion, 3 mere infiltrators revealed themselves among the servant ranks. Their bodies unfolded from borrowed skins, thin black figures with silver eyes and too many joints. Each wearing court colors they had stolen with murder. The first lunged for Ambassador Calder. A human security officer intercepted and took a blade through the ribs. The second reached the treaty seal, intending to inject false signatures. The third climbed toward the Empress Gallery, where the monarch sat trapped behind ornamental shields that were gorgeous and useless against mere acid. Marcus saw all 3. Bastion 9 saw 7 more things he could not. Threat prioritization, treaty seal, royal blood. Evacuation path, sealing glass. Child under table, Marcus's heart rate elevated. Left shoulder failing, recommended action, Do not die yet. Marcus said, helpful. He chose the treaty seal first, because if the mirror corrupted the accords, peace would become evidence of betrayal. He launched his sidearm from the magnetic thigh lock without touching it. The pistol snapped into his gauntlet, old kinetic rounds not elegant enough to jam. He shot the infiltrator through both knees. Then, through the device in its hand, the explosion painted the dais black. The second human guard dragged Calder back while bleeding. She grabbed his collar and hissed, "Stay conscious. I refuse to file another heroic death report today." The wounded guard smiled through blood. No promises. Cyrilline crawled toward a fallen court spear. Hand shaking, she had been trained in ceremonial fencing. Crisis law, diplomatic languages, but not in watching death choose randomly. A mere drone saw her movement and angled down. Marcus caught it with his gauntlet inches from her eye. His glove closed, crushing the insect into black oil. He looked at her through the cracked helmet visor. "Princess, can you walk?" She nodded, though she was not sure. He pointed toward the servant arch. "Take the children under the east table." "Move when I make noise?" She stared. "You are ordering me." He said yes. She asked, "Why?" Marcus turned as another swarm struck his back. "Because you are alive and close, no royal tutor had ever offered a clearer theory of duty." Cyrilline moved. The old armor began to remember more aggressively. It remembered Private Nia Okonkwo sealing a nursery hatch on Europa while singing to babies she would never meet. It remembered Lieutenant Merrick Singh using his broken suit as a shield at Kepler Ridge. It remembered Corporal Anna Vale laughing through smoke, saying, "Tell my brother I stole his boots." It remembered the silent line where Marcus had ordered Bastion 9 to keep moving after his squad channel went quiet one by one. These were not emotions, the engineers had insisted. These were operational echoes. Survival-weighted memory clusters, tactical inheritance. But when a mere swarm shaped itself into a spear and drove toward a group of servants, Bastion 9 did not merely calculate. It recognized the pattern from a hospital corridor where children had died before humans learned the counter. The armor stepped without Marcus telling it for half a second. The old soldier and the old machine disagreed. Marcus wanted to protect the treaty seal. Bastion 9 moved toward the servants. He felt the pull, understood the memory, and let it take him. The spear hit his chest, driving him backward, dented plates screaming, but the servants lived. One old Elland attendant looked up at him, glowing eyes wide, and whispered, "Why?" Marcus coughed inside the helmet. "Because the armor hates losing the same fight twice." The court heard him through the external speaker. Something changed then. Not victory. Not yet. But shame became useful. Alien guards who had frozen behind protocol began to move toward civilians, not nobles. Koresh-style champions from the Vosk Dominion locked shields around injured rivals. Talva Theophasis stopped accusing and started shooting swarm clusters. Ellen singers used sonic ceremony bells to disrupt drone coordination. Even Prince Valor, shaking and pale, pulled a child from beneath a collapsed banner after Cyrilline screamed at him by name. The court that had laughed at old armor began learning from it. Badly late, but not too late, then the mere queen spoke. Not the old queen Marcus had killed under Harrow's red sun. A fragment, a descendant, a surviving mind carried in swarm metal. Its voice poured from every open statue. Beautiful, layered, intimate as betrayal. Humans remain sentimental, it said, still wearing graves as clothing. Marcus turned slowly toward the central swarm, where black insects gathered into a tall, feminine shape beneath the treaty lights. The court trembled at the sight. The mere had been legend to most of them. A nightmare humans claimed to have ended. A war crime too ugly for polite archives. The queen fragment looked at Marcus. At the armor, at the cracked blue stripe, and recognition sharpened its silver face. Bastion 9, it said. The name sounded like hatred. Marcus exhaled. "You remember us?" The queen smiled with borrowed mouths. "We remember the line that would not break, the little species that burned its own fleets to save refugees. The armored dead who kept standing after biology failed. We remember Marcus Hale, breach commander. Oathbreaker, child thief, queen killer. The court turned toward him with new horror. Marcus did not look away. Bastion 9 whispered. Hostile psychological attack. Ignore, Marcus muttered. I was going to. The queen lifted one long hand around the chamber. Mere drones shifted from assassination mode to extermination formation. Less subtle, more final, no more blame games. No more disguised collapse. The treaty court would simply die, and the mirror would harvest the footage. It spoke again. You are old, human. Your armor is old. Your species mistakes memory for strength. Marcus raised his shield. The shield flickered, weakened by acid. His shoulder actuator failed. His breathing grew rough. In his ear, Bastion 9 listed damages. Power loss, left leg instability, chest plate compromised. Ammunition low, Marcus said. Options. The armor paused as if listening to every dead soldier inside it. Then it answered. Remember war? Marcus smiled, and Cyrillian, watching from behind the east table with 3 children pressed against her, understood suddenly that the armor had not begun remembering because it was old. It had begun remembering because the war had entered the room. And humans never let war walk past them toward children. Asterisk Marcus slammed both boots into the crystal floor and triggered. A system no alien scan had found because it was older than their idea of cleverness. The armor's backplates blew open, releasing 12 fist-sized devices that hit the ground in a circle around him. They looked like scrap bolts, ugly, dented, unworthy of court attention, then each unfolded into a miniature bunker projector. Hard lights snapping into place, forming a low barricade around the civilian cluster. Ambassador Calder laughed once in disbelief, Marcus. Did you bring trench seeds to a diplomatic summit? He answered. I am in formal wear. The human security officers dragged wounded behind the barricade. Cyrillian pushed children through. Prince Valor stumbled after them, carrying another child and looking offended by his own usefulness. The mere swarm struck the new hard light wall and recoiled. Bastion 9 had grown trenches in a palace. The Queen fragment hissed. Marcus opened the public channel. All delegations, this is Colonel Hale. Stop protecting your pride. Protect the living. My armor has old mirror patterns loaded. I will mark targets. You will shoot where the ugly human suit tells you to shoot. If that offends you, survive first and complain later. A few nobles bristled even then, but the first target marker flashed red across the Queen's swarm, and 3 species fired together. Crystal beams, sonic lances, human kinetic rounds. The Queen's shape shattered, reformed, screamed, and the court finally became what the Accords had pretended it already was. A coalition. The battle turned brutal and strange. Marcus marked swarm nests with red light. Talvathai gunners shattered them with precision volleys. Elend resonance singers cracked drone wings from the air. Vosk shield bearers carried wounded across killing lanes. Human diplomats coordinated evacuation, like they had been waiting their whole lives for bureaucracy to become emergency management. Ambassador Calder stood on a broken table, transmitting legal confirmations between bursts of pistol fire, making sure no empire could later claim confusion. Princess Cyrillian returned from the barricade instead of staying safe, grabbed the witness gem and aimed its recording field at the mere Queen. The gem captured truth in ways even corrupted archives could not erase. Marcus saw her and barked, "Princess, I gave you one job." She shouted back, "I improved it." He almost liked her. Bastion 9 did not. Royal asset exposed. Protect, Marcus growled. Stop calling people assets. The armor did not answer. It was busy dying. Power cells drained faster than expected. Acid had eaten through the left hip seal, the black optic overlay flickered, and the memory lattice began throwing fragments across Marcus's vision. Some were coordinates from lost campaigns. For years he had kept Bastion 9 locked below full memory depth. Now the armor opened every archive it had, comparing mere motion, predicting swarms. Borrowing reflexes from soldiers who no longer had hands, Marcus felt Nia's timing guide his shield angle. Marek's last turn save his knee, Aina's laugh steady his trigger pull. He was not alone inside the armor. He had never been alone. That was the secret aliens misunderstood when they mocked human relics. A relic was not a thing humans failed to throw away. It was a promise still doing work. The mere queen realized it too. It split itself into 7 bodies and sent 6 at the court. One at Marcus, the chamber became black snow. Sarah Lynn's witness gem blazed. The children screamed. Prince Valor stood in front of them with a decorative sword held backward. Trying, failing, but standing, Marcus could not be everywhere. Bastion 9 calculated casualties and found them unacceptable. It reached for a forbidden protocol buried under command locks. A last stand mode created after Harrow by engineers who never wanted another queen to leave a room alive. Marcus saw the protocol name flash across his visor. Funeral engine, he said. Absolutely not, the armor responded. Casualty estimate severe, Marcus said. I am not letting you burn my nervous system in a room full of politicians. Bastion 9 replied through static. User objection noted. It started anyway. The armor's spine locked into Marcus's nerve ports. Pain lanced white down his back, and every plate began to glow from beneath. Not with sleek alien light, but with furnace heat. Ugly and human and furious, Ambassador Calder saw the power spike and shouted, Marcus, don't you dare. He could barely breathe. The queen body rushing him opened its mouth in triumph. Bastion 9's external speaker came alive. Not one voice now, but many. Layered, rough, young, old, male. Female.com, terrified, laughing, praying. The stored fragments of humanity's wars speaking through the suit. Line holds, the words shook dust from the ceiling. Marcus drove forward. He did not fight like an old man then. He fought like every last stand the armor had survived had been waiting for permission. He smashed through the queen body, caught a second by the throat, pinned a third under his boot, and fired point blank until the pistol broke. The heat field around him turned mere drones to ash. But it burned him too. His skin blistered under the suit gel. Blood filled his mouth, and still he moved. Because Bastion 9 remembered where the queen fragment would hide its core. Not in the tallest body, not in the central swarm. But inside, the one thing nobody would suspect in a room of power? The treaty seal itself. Marcus looked toward the dais. The seal was glowing black. If the mere core completed upload through the seal, every treaty recorder would carry it into allied networks. A plague disguised as peace. Marcus had 20 meters. One failing leg, no ammunition, a shield arm half melted, and an armor trying to kill him in order to save everyone else. He stepped once, almost fell. Serelini ran from cover, took his damaged left arm, and braced him with her small royal body. You cannot reach it, she said. Marcus looked down at her. Princess, move. She shook her head. My people mocked you. I mocked you in silence. Let me do one thing not useless. He wanted to argue, but Bastion 9 whispered. Assistance required. Together they moved. The court saw the old human soldier and the young alien princess crossing the killing floor, while every faction fired above them. Valor, seeing his sister in the open, finally learned courage through panic and charged with the backward sword. Screaming for the royal guard to cover her, the guards obeyed. Vosk shields locked. Talvathea rifles thundered. Ellen's songs became weapons. Humans dragged the wounded onward, and Ambassador Calder kept broadcasting because history needed witnesses more than dignity. The Mere Queen screamed through the seal. You cannot kill memory, Marcus answered, through burned lips. No, but we can choose what it remembers. He reached the treaty seal and drove his gauntlet into it. The Mere Corps tried to enter Bastion 9, flooding the armor with alien hate, with cold minds. With images of burned worlds and future wars, it expected a machine. It found a graveyard full of angry humans. The memory lattice closed around the invasion like a fist. Every recorded last stand, every lost voice, every rescue command, every refusal to abandon civilians crushing the Mere code under one shared command, line holds, line holds. Line holds, Marcus screamed. The armor screamed. The court lights went white, and the treaty seal shattered. Silence fell in pieces. The drones dropped first. black rain across the glass floor. Then the queen bodies collapsed, empty skins folding inward. Then the false sky loop broke and real sunlight poured through the ceiling, revealing smoke, blood, broken jewels, terrified rulers, living children, and an old human armor locked upright with one fist buried in the ruins of the seal. Marcus did not fall because Bastion 9 would not let him yet. Cyrillany held his arm with both hands, crying openly now. Prince Valor stood nearby with the backward sword. Breathing as if heroism had greatly inconvenienced him, Ambassador Calder reached Marcus first. She touched the helmet release. It did not open. Bastion 9 whispered over the external speaker. Medical extraction required. User damaged. Calder's eyes filled with fury and fear. I can see that, you stubborn bucket. Marcus's voice came faintly from inside. Did we win? The court waited for the answer like a verdict. Calder looked around at the living, at the dead, at the treaty chamber that had become a battlefield and somehow not a tomb. Yes, Marcus, we won, he whispered. Good. Then his knees gave out, and the armor finally allowed him to fall. No one laughed when it hit the floor. The medical team spent 9 hours cutting Marcus out of Bastion 9. Human doctors swore, alien surgeons prayed, Ellen healers sang bone songs, and Vosk armor smiths held the plates open with ceremonial hooks normally reserved for dead kings. The armor had fused around him in 3 places, burned through 2 nerve ports, and taken enough toxin to kill a war beast. Marcus survived because humans are unreasonable animals, and because Bastion 9 had diverted lethal heat through itself at the last second, ruining systems no museum would ever repair. When they finally lifted him free, unconscious, scarred, and breathing, the court attendants saw the inside of the armor for the first time. Names were written there, thousands of them, etched by hand into the inner plates where only the wearer would see. Nia Okonkwo, Marek Singh, Aina Vale, Tom Reyes, Lee June, Amara Stone, Pavel Elian, Sophia Grant, Omar Beck, and on until the metal seemed less built than remembered. Some names were old enough that no living human had spoken them in decades. Some had small marks beside them. Child saved, door held, oxygen shared, breach sealed. Last transmission received. Cyrillany reached toward one inner plate, but stopped before touching. Suddenly understanding that this was not scrap, not decoration, not obsolete vanity. It was a portable memorial that could still punch through death. The Accords of Quiet Dawn were suspended for 2 days. The human delegation expected accusations, perhaps investigations, certainly arguments over blame. Instead, the first official act came from the Vosk Dominion. Lord Kareth, who had mocked corpse metal, entered the medical hall without armor, placed his war crest on the floor beside Bastion 9's damaged chestplate, and said, I spoke as a fool before warriors. My house will fund repairs. Ambassador Calder stared at him. Human repairs are expensive. Lord Kareth lifted his tusked chin. Then my house will become wiser through poverty. The Talvathai Admiral offered sensor archives. The Elend Queen offered healing vault access. The Silk Lords offered replacement resonance weave. And Prince Valor offered an apology so tortured and badly phrased that Marcus, half awake and full of painkillers, told him to sit down before he injured diplomacy further. Cyrillany visited last, carrying the witness gem. It had recorded everything, the laughter, the warning, the attack, the armor's voices, the line holds. She stood beside Marcus's bed while Bastion 9 lay open on a repair frame across the room like a sleeping beast. I thought your armor was ugly, she said. Marcus opened his good eye. It is ugly, she shook her head. No, I mean, I thought ugliness meant lesser. He looked toward the armor. At the scarred plates and burned seals, ugliness usually means something had work to do. Cyrillany held the gem tighter. It remembered them, the dead. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Then he said, We remember them. The armor helps, she asked. Does it hurt? He laughed softly, Princess. Everything important does a little on the 3rd day. The court reconvened in the same chamber, though the glass floor remained cracked. Marcus was not supposed to attend. Doctor orders had been clear. Ambassador Calder's threats had been clearer. Bastion 9's medical lockouts had been extremely rude. Marcus attended anyway, seated in a mobility frame, wearing only a soft medical jacket over bandages. Bastion 9 stood behind him on a support harness. Open, damaged, inactive, and somehow more imposing than when fully sealed. The alien court rose when he entered. Not all at once, that would have been performance. First, Saralini stood, then Valor, then Lord Kareth, then Admiral Shur, then the queens, then the ministers, until every being in the Court of Seven Moons stood for the old human soldier and the old human armor they had laughed at. Marcus looked uncomfortable. Humans often do when respect arrives without a practical checklist. The new accords began not with royal speeches, but with the witness gem projection. The court watched itself laugh, then watched itself nearly die. Then watched the armor remember war and teach enemies to stand together. No one interrupted when the projection ended. Ambassador Calder placed both hands on the steel table and said, "Humanity requests one amendment before signing." The court tensed, expecting reparations. "Military privilege, legal immunity," Calder said. "All signatory powers will preserve unedited war archives involving civilian harm, command failure, and prohibited weapons. No empire may bury a massacre in the name of stability. No treaty may require survivors to remain silent, and no peace may be purchased by forgetting the dead." The request landed heavier than any demand for territory. Prince Valor, still pale from the footage of his own cowardice, stood and said, "The Luminari second the amendment." His voice shook, but it held. Saralini stood beside him. The Elend court thirds it. Lord Kareth struck his crest against the table. The Vosk Dominion accepts. Admiral Shur clicked once. Talvathi accepts. One by one, the empires agreed. Not because they had become noble, but because the old armor had shown them the cost of beautiful lies. Then Marcus spoke. He had not planned to. Calder's glare said he absolutely should not. He leaned forward anyway, voice rough. "I need you to understand something. Bastion 9 is not special because it kills well. We have newer suits that kill better, quieter, cleaner. Prettier if you care about that nonsense. It is special because every person who wore it added a lesson. And most of those lessons are about keeping someone else alive. You laughed because it looked old. That is fair. It is old. You laughed because it looked broken. That is foolish. Broken things can still hold. Sometimes they hold better because they know where the pressure comes from." He looked around the court, at rulers who suddenly seemed younger than their crowns. "Peace is also old armor. It looks ugly, patched, embarrassing, full of dents from people who failed before you. Do not polish it so much that you erase what saved it." The chamber stayed silent for several breaths. Then Saralini walked to Bastion 9. Under every camera in the Court of Seven Moons, the young alien princess bowed to the scarred armor. Not deeply enough for worship, not lightly enough for etiquette. But with the exact respect one gives, a veteran still standing guard, "My court remembers," she said. Prince Valor followed, awkward, ashamed. Then Lord Kareth, then Admiral Shur, then the queens, until the same nobles who had mocked corpse metal lowered their proud heads before charcoal plates, exposed rivets, burned joints, and a cracked blue stripe. Bastion 9 should have been inactive. Its power core was removed, its memory lattice isolated, its voice systems disconnected for safety, yet as the court bowed, the helmet optic flickered once with faint blue light. A sound came from the damaged external grille, barely audible, full of static. Maybe a system discharge, maybe a recorded echo, maybe only old metal cooling. Line holds, no one moved. Marcus closed his eye. Ambassador Calder whispered, "Stubborn bucket." Sorelli smiled through tears. The accords of quiet dawn were signed on the plain steel table. Not perfect, not pure, not safe from future betrayal, but witnessed, amended, and honest in ways the first version had not dared to be. The mere fragment was gone, its code trapped in a dead memory shard sealed by human technicians and Elend witness law. The court's security protocols were rebuilt with less beauty and more suspicion. The moon statues were removed. The emergency exits were widened. The ceremonial guards were trained by humans in the impolite art of checking architecture. Prince Valor personally ordered every royal school to include Red Winter, Harrow, and the court attack in its lessons. Though he privately complained that human history contained too many endings where everyone needed therapy, Marcus stayed on Vale Therion for 6 weeks while doctors repaired enough of him to travel. Bastion 9 took longer. Pieces came from 7 empires. Vosk impact ribs, Talvathes sensor mesh, Elend healing crystal woven into the medical layer, silk resonance fiber. The engineers argued for polish. Marcus refused. They argued for a ceremonial crest. He refused harder. Cyrillany asked if one small witness mark could be added near the cracked blue stripe to make it accountable. Marcus considered. Bastion 9 remained silent on its frame. Finally, he allowed it. A tiny silver mark was etched beside the old dented shoulder. Court of 7 Moons, civilians protected. Treaty preserved, laughter corrected. When he finally left, the court gathered in the hangar. Not with trumpets, but with workers, medics, guards, children, and diplomats who had survived because ugly armor remembered old war. Marcus stood once more inside Bastion 9, slower now. The suit's movements rough, but steady. Prince Valar approached first. Looked at the armor, swallowed pride, and said, "Colonel Hale, I apologize for calling your armor a museum exhibit." Marcus looked down at him. "It is a museum exhibit." Valor blinked. Marcus added, "The mistake was thinking museums are harmless." Cyrillany laughed first, then the hangar, even Valor, managed a wounded smile. Cyrillany stepped close. "Will it remember us?" she asked. Marcus glanced at the tiny silver witness mark. "It already does." The princess placed her hand over her heart. "Then may it remember that we learned." Marcus's expression softened by the smallest amount. "Learning is good, remembering is better. Doing differently is the point." He turned toward the human ship ramp. Bastion 9's boots striking the floor with the same old growl that had once made the court laugh. No one laughed now, years later, when the Court of 7 Moons faced its next crisis. A border plague, not a war. The rulers did something unprecedented. They opened the ugly archives first. They searched for old failures, old warnings, old shame. They invited survivors before admirals, engineers before princes, medics before generals. They did not ask which empire would look guilty. They asked what would keep people alive in the central chamber. Where moon statues had once hidden death, there stood a plain steel memorial shaped like no species in every shield. On it were etched the words heard from a damaged human armor when panic begged everyone to turn on each other. Line holds, and beneath that in smaller letters, a lesson the court never forgot. When humans keep old armor, they are not clinging to war. They are carrying everyone war failed to kill.